Jack it up.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Borderwise, and welcome back to From the Depths, and another subscriber craft review, and another double subscriber craft review, because, well, I was planning on doing a double review anyway, but I looked at the next two ships on my list, and they are remarkably similar in a number of ways, and I've had a great deal of fun contrasting them. And so here they are together. We have on the left here the SMS Novaesia battleship by Heismaster, and on the right we have the Ximarka-Class battleship by Bezo711, also known as Bezo the Meme Master, I think. On the Discord anyway. And I have no idea if I pronounced either of the names of these two ships correctly. Probably haven't, but that's okay. And so, why are we comparing these two ships in particular? Well, first off, I'm gonna tell you straight, neither of these vessels are truly well optimized. They're like, for power and defense and overall efficiency per cost, they're not very good. I'm gonna say it flat. I don't hold that against either the Heismaster or Bezo711, because this game is hard and everyone builds their first battleship. Goodness knows I haven't even managed to build... I don't know. I haven't managed to build something I would consider a proper battleship. Like, I have the Naga, but I always considered that more of a battle cruiser. And goodness knows that has a lot of flaws of its own. But these two are a good, solid start to that, and I happen to know that Bezo is... Was it Bezo or Benzo? What the hell am I talking about? Hello? It's Benzo. I spelt it wrong on my crib notes. Blurred. Sorry, Benzo. So in any case, I happen to know that Benzo is already in the middle of building a much bigger ship, and hopefully this little review will help him, like, avoid some of the mistakes that he's made with this one. But let's get on to the actual review itself, and we'll start with the Novaesia, simply because it's slightly higher up on the list. It got submitted first. Incidentally, Heismaster originally submitted 3 ships all at once, and then I decided that please only one at a time. And so this is the one he wanted me to review, the Novaesia. The battleship of the, I think, 3 he submitted. So what do we like about this? Well, firstly, as you can see, it's got big cram guns. It gets a point in my book, because crams are the least meta thing in the game, so props if you use them, and double props if you make them work, and these 2 cram guns, turrets I guess you could call it, actually are pretty good. They're penetration depth, and they're pretty damn big. So let's turn on the UI. Full 2000 millimeters, and they are effective, if not perhaps efficient. More on that later. What else? It also has counter torpedoes, which I'm pleased by, because I don't know if you got the idea from me or someone else, but here they are. They're not super effective little ones, but they do the trick. Little torpedo interceptors thing, and they do a reasonable job of blowing up torpedoes before they actually blow holes in the hull, so that's pretty good. There's also aesthetically this eagle prow, like little aesthetic spin blocks, which are allowed by my rules, by the way, because this is literally just for looks. It's quite cool, actually. A little bird right there. It's even got the tail, like, smoothly integrates with the prow, so that's pretty good. It's got this huge pointy thing right here. Not entirely sure why that happens, but oh well, sometimes you just gotta build. For the cannons, it has a usual Hesh disruptor combo. I forget which ones are which. So it's got, these are all the shells on it. Not gonna go over every single gun, but suffice it to say that pretty much all the main guns use a mixture of disruptor conduit, squash head, shaped charge, and then we have these little flat guns on the side, which are about 30 millimeters. They're very, very small. turn that on. Yep, so about 30 millimeters, 30 millimeters. More on those later. And it also has, as you can see down here, I believe it has a PID somewhere. Does it have a PID? It might have a PID. I might be thinking that wrong. Hear that noisy steam engine going? Was it? I swear it did. Am I going crazy? I might be going crazy. Yep, I think I'm officially crazy. This thing doesn't have a PID. I don't think so. No, no, no. Not sure why I put that there. Maybe it's the most recent one, doesn't it? No, no, it definitely does have a PID somewhere because of these little things right here. Yep. So it's either... Goodness me, where did he hide them? Where the heck do you hide them, man? He's got little AI components scattered throughout the whole ship, so... Which is a good tactic, by the way. It means that, it means that you can't lose all your AI bits all in one go. Freaking hell. Where is the thing? Well, that'll teach me for not looking at it before, but it only occurs to me to look for certain things once I've started the actual review itself, but suffice to say, it's got a PID somewhere on there, and yeah, it works. This thing doesn't sink easily. Now we'll move on to the Ximarka, and unfortunately the list of positives with this is considerably shorter. It also has crams. How big are these things? These are not quite as big, about 1600 millimeters. And these, I believe, are... Yeah, these are also penetration depth. And it also has cute smokestacks. And it also has a PID, keeping it nice and afloat. And unfortunately, that's basically it. The rest is all criticism. Sorry, Benzo. But now we'll get to the cons. And since we started with the Novaesia first, we'll start with her. And the first con I'm going to point out is these things along the side. These are little 1000mm cram cannons, and they do damage, but the damage they do is not worth their cost. Like, fixed guns like these are generally not a good idea because, well, I'll show you. Like, well, in here is a considerable amount of material expense just in high explosives. And this is not good cram Tetris. Like, each explosive pellet is has only got one connection to an autoloader, when really what you want is every single one of these to be pretty much surrounded by them. So there'll be one here, 2, 3, 4. 4-way connections, 3 if you absolutely must. So yeah, these things are not efficiently Tetris together, and as a result, they're expensive. Like, I don't know, actually, we could just prefab this. 1, 2. So if we do this, and say 5, 5, 5. Actually, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's drop the height by 1, and... Oh, and let's see that. That is 2,000 materials. And it has a lot of these. It has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 14 times 2,000 is around... Damn it. My math is terrible. 14 times 2,000 is around 28,000 materials, of which about 14,000 cannot aim at the primary target if there is only one. So these are not a good idea. Crams don't actually make good secondaries generally because, well, they're just too expensive. And generally speaking, when they're smaller, they're less efficient. You can see there, this thing has 0.87 inaccuracy, which is pretty terrible for a cram cannon, actually. These things miss a lot, and their muzzle velocity is also... it's okay, but it's also not good. So yeah, like, these things on the side... Honestly, the ship would do better if these were removed and instead there was armor in its place. That's just what I think anyway, so... Or, what you could do is, similar to what's on the Kingstead, you could have direct input feed APS on the side here, because they're much cheaper, and you can make the shells faster and make them essentially do something that the main guns can't. So yeah, there is that. And Next on the list of cons for the Novaesia is this weird pointy bit. I have never seen this ram do anything in the tests I've run, and if you have a look at it, that is also a lot of material cost. It does have some aim point spoofing right here, and it does have a air pump right here, but there's another one over here. So honestly, you could essentially shear off the prow right, where is it? So about here, and save yourself, I don't know, several hundred material cost. Or you could even just get rid of the whole thing, because honestly, I don't know, aesthetically, I don't think it looks pretty good. It doesn't really match the ship. I think the ship would look better if it just kind of ends here. Again, that's aesthetics. That's entirely, like, up to the Heismaster. Like, don't have to listen to me on that. But that is a very expensive pointy bit that doesn't really do much. I would get rid of it. And next on the list is just, I write down these things just as they occur to me rather than anything else. Here we have the flak, and 30mm flak, I gotta tell you, is not very good. Flak damage of 2, and flak radius of 6, that is really terrible. Like, it's one of those, and also a better frag, but also not particularly good. So here, 160, 160, 160, 160, flak head. These guns are actually too small for the shell type they have. For guns this tiny, what you really want is them to fire as fast as possible, and preferably either use frag or pure kinetic shells, because flak only really starts getting useful around like medium to high shell gauges, which is weird because in real life flak guns tend to be smaller than other kinds of guns because they're meant to shoot at squishy targets like aircraft. But alas, in this game, small flak is really not worth it, so I'd make this pure frag or pure kinetic if I were you. So yeah, like I tested this thing against like a whole swarm of spirals, the little annoying steel striders craft, and these things couldn't even shoot down one of them. It was just, it did not work very well. And what else do we have to go on? If we turn off this, and you'll notice down in the right corner, the materials have started ticking down, now that Rambot isn't feeding materials to these ships anymore. This is a material-hungry beast, because it's mostly... Let's just follow the sound of it. Actually, no, we can't. Where's it? Where's it? Screw it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see that this steam engine right here is going full tilt. Also not symmetrical. Interesting. No, wait, it is. It is. I lied. So, this could be fixed pretty much with a control block. Essentially just... Hang on, what are these? What are these? Oh, it already has them. It's eating materials, like, pretty quickly. Like, even now, like... Set it to... I'd set it even lower. I'd set it to, like... Hell, I'd set this even lower. I'd set it to, like... Now the pro thing probably can't even move, but yeah. So if you set this really low when out of combat, it essentially means that it won't eat up all your materials, like, outside of combat. Can this thing even move? Does it have enough, propulsion? Go over there. Nope. Nope, it does not. So I would recommend, if you're gonna use steam, use electric steam. Like, use a steam engine to charge batteries, have an electric engine, and that way, just, you can set it to eat virtually nothing while out of combat. And when you're in combat, it fires up and, like, produces lots of steam, produces lots of electricity, and keeps your battleship running, so. I'm not gonna affect and revert what I just did, because I'm probably gonna despawn this thing eventually anyway. And... what else, what else? Okay, so the cram guns. These are also not Tetris together incredibly well. Like, lots of gauges, all that kind of stuff. Mainly because you'll notice that these guns do not share a lot of stuff. Like, these are essentially two separate bits of cram cannon. There's really no pellet sharing between any of them. And there's wasted space in here, so... You see here, there's a lot of wasted space. And here, there's a bit of wasted space, and in the gun itself, there is wasted space. So in here, you will see that there's like a whole space, and you could potentially stick something down here. Like you could stick gauge increases, you could stick 6-way connectors, like even autoloaders maybe if you Tetris it together. I really recommend, Wellner has a cram platform, which I think I might put in the description, a link to in the description actually. Yeah, what is it? It is called Cram Tetris Mark II or something like that. That's very helpful for figuring out like how to Tetris crams properly. Because let me tell you, this is not it. This is using way too many pellets, and yeah, it's not working very well. It does pack the shells reasonably fast and make a powerful shell, but it's not efficient, and you can cut down a lot on material use if you use efficient. I should possibly mention a high note is that the Heismaster has put firing restriction not just on the turret, but on the firing pieces themselves. That is apparently a very good idea, because it just really makes the gun idiot-proof and stops it from aiming at things it can't aim at. Just a little side note there. And where's it? There's a blocked radar right here. So this radar cannot see forwards. And that's not a huge issue because it has detection in that direction, but these 360 radars, and 360 cameras by extension, are often the first things that spot something, simply because they see in every direction. So what you could do is just make this smokestack a little bit smaller. In fact, there's nothing important in there, so you can. So from about here, dum, 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 and boom, boom, boom. And I don't know, just do something like... sorry Heismaster, I am really doing terrible things to your craft right now. And by terrible things, I mean making it pretty. 2, 3, and... yeah, what can we do here? So something like this. Admittedly, that's not incredibly good looking. In fact, it's probably too much smoke, to be perfectly honest with you. But something like that, that'll just, again, save on materials a little bit and allow this radar to see in a full 360 direction. And just, you know, every little bit helps. This game is all about the little details, here and there and everywhere. And what else? Aha! Now we get to the ammunition, and point to Heismaster, because he has figured out that... oh, come on, there we go. So, ammunition is here at the back. This is a good thing, because when the ammo is on the back here, given how most craft in the game are set to aim for ammo barrels first, they will aim for here, and the stern of the ship is by far the hardest part to hit, because it turns, and shots tend to overshoot. I've mentioned that before. So this is a good idea. I believe there's more ammo scattered around here, there, and everywhere. I believe there's more... yeah, there's some more in the front, which is the second hardest part to hit. But there are two problems with the ammo over here, and by extension in the front, is here we have... let's do this. 1, 2... B. So, heavy armor is good for enclosing ammo, simply because it's very space efficient. You can just stick heavy armor around it, and it also prevents the explosion made by ammo cooking off can't blow through heavy armor blocks, as far as I'm aware. It tends to leave these mostly intact, so they're quite good, especially if you're constrained for space. And this is clever use of heavy armor. It's using it sparingly around really volatile components, because it's a good explosion absorber. That, I think, is possibly the best use for it. However, we go here, there's a metal beam there instead of heavy armor, and same down here, there's metal beams underneath it and just all the side. This is a problem, because heavy armor is only really good at defending something if it fully wraps around it, if there's no gaps in it, because it is so much stronger than any other material that any kind of explosion tends to kind of wrap around it. It kind of shreds any weaker materials around it and then just kind of gets past. So if a really powerful cramshell, say, hits about, let's see, here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the explosion will wrap right around these heavy armor beams and blow up the ammunition anyway. In fact, like, sometimes and also any kind of frag might have a habit of just bouncing through here, and the same thing with heat and hash. It'll just go, well, heat and hash is a little bit of a different story, because it'll just go straight through this completely, and at which point you need other things to defend it against as well. So, just, if you're gonna use heavy armor to defend ammunition or your AI or something, you need to wrap it completely in heavy armor, because otherwise, well, just the weaker blocks will get blown out and it'll be exposed anyway, because even this metal beam right here that's inside the ship will probably get destroyed before these do, at which point these heavy armor beams instantly become useless, because an explosion or just frag will just bounce in here and kill these anyway. So, wrap up your ammo like the precious present it is. So yeah. And on the note of heavy armor, this craft is actually quite EMP vulnerable, which is, well, understandable. It's mostly made of metal. And alloy, for that matter, a bit of wood here and there, but here, if a big EMP hit happens here, whether it's from a cram, or a particle cannon, or even a torpedo or missile, it is going to melt this, and then, like any kind of damage dealing, will just punch straight through this double layer and just destroy this. So yeah, that's heavy armor, gets melted by EMP reasonably easily, and it also has AI and other vulnerable EMP bits touching metal directly with no protection, so these AI components are sitting straight on cold metal, there's no surge protectors to speak of, these repair bots are sitting straight on metal. I believe even the main AI is also sitting there. Actually, no, not so bad. But, no, it is that bad, actually. Heavy armor does absorb EMP. It doesn't, it kind of absorbs it and gets damaged by it. But, the AI mainframe herself is sitting straight on a metal beam, which leads all the way out to the cold outside world. So a sufficient EMP jolt will reach all the way in here. It's slightly less likely because apparently the way EMP works, it's more likely to travel along beams than crossways across them. But I find that it still tends to happen that if just basically never let your AI touch metal unless it has a crap ton of surge protectors around it. So yeah, that is worthy to note. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, because my crib notes aren't in order, about the ammo being back here. Now, Icemaster, you have taken advantage of the fact that your enemy is probably going to aim for these first. That is a good thing, because this bit is hard to hit. However, it is almost right underneath this very big, expensive, precious gun that you want to keep alive as long as possible. So, the trick with ammunition is knowing that currently how the game works, enemy craft will usually aim for it first. Keep any other vital components well away from it, if you can. Or defend them really well, because in my testing I find that these ammo blocks tend to take a reasonably long time to get destroyed, simply because of the position they're in. They're quite low below the waterline. They've got a heavy armor here and there. But this gun tends to get the cap blown off very quickly, sometimes almost instantly. And that's not good, because these are 4 2000mm cram cannons. You want to keep this alive as long as possible. So don't stick. I would honestly like move this elsewhere, maybe move it back one. But yeah, honestly, like it's essentially just the trade-off you make between being compact and kind of spacing your ship out enough so it can take damage better, because simply being big is a defense in itself. I'll leave that up to you to decide, and that's basically it. So this craft is a good start. It is, and I'll get to that in a bit. Sorry, Benzo, this craft is somewhat more optimized, and I guess polished, than the Ximarka, but there's still quite a few issues to work through. So yeah, hope that was helpful. Now we get on to the Ximarka, and the Ximarka actually shares a few of the Novaesia's issues, primarily among them EMP vulnerability and wasted space. So EMP vulnerability, well, this thing relies a lot on heavy armor for its survivability, and not in a particularly efficient way, because remember, heavy armor is expensive, it's heavy, and it tends to survive uselessly when other, sometimes more valuable blocks around it get destroyed, so you want to be very sparing with it. And Benzo, who also made the Leviathan, by the way, the big tank that I reviewed in a previous episode, is very fond of using heavy armor, and I would recommend getting less fond of it, sorry to say, because it is very expensive heavy stuff, and there's actually quite a bit of subtlety in using it correctly. Just making entire turret caps out of it is not a good idea. It's better to make either to have fewer heavy armor blocks and use armor stacking to essentially give their armor bonus to some cheaper material like metal or alloy or even stone or wood, than to just have it bare like this. Okay, so there is that. So EMP vulnerability, let me show you. So I believe this also has a mainframe stuck on metal somewhere. Unless I'm being... yep, so here this also has a monster steam engine. And if I do this, let's jump on here. Start giving it money. Giving more central resource, and yeah, this thing drains materials actually even faster than Novaesia, so it's a bit of a material hog. But I've gotten all out of order in my notes now, which is a little bit of annoying. So first off, EMP vulnerable. Let's go have a look at the AI. AI isn't here. It is touching bare metal, which means this brain gets fried by electricity. So that's not good. And also, especially if an EMP torpedo comes up from underneath, as they often do actually, especially when fired from a submarine, it is going to AI dead this thing very, very quickly. And you don't want that. You don't want that at all. So that's something to consider. And this thing has torpedoes. It in fact has rather cute little torpedo turrets in here. And these are perfectly serviceable torpedoes except for one problem. This APN guidance that they have tends to screw with them a lot. Generally, because torpedoes go for slower targets anyway, you are better off using... where is it? You are better off using target prediction guidance, because that'll allow the torpedo to be more agile and make tighter turns. Whereas I've seen these things essentially streak straight past a target that's not even moving that quickly. The limited angle of fire of this turret doesn't help either, so I would replace the APN on these, because these are otherwise like perfectly acceptable torpedoes. They've got fins, torpedo propellers. They do need a ballast tank though. Ballast tank, target prediction by guidance, get rid of the APN because it's not helping at all. And what else? Ah, one of the bigger draws on this, and you might have seen this in the little montage that came up before, is these things. These are, well, firstly not accurate. Might want to tweak that. These are little frag guns, and this is a perfectly serviceable shell. However, the turret that they're stuck in is not. You do not want your, well, any gun this exposed. Even a layer of wood over the top of this would be better than nothing, because this is, not only is this highly exposed, it's got a very volatile kind of shell. And it's also got exposed weapon controllers and all that stuff, so yeah, this is not good. Pure surface turrets are not a good idea. It took me a while to fully understand that and accept that in this game, but really, these things go up almost instantly. Like even tiny flak guns will trigger an explosion here that, well, tends to shred the entire superstructure, and especially since these are frag shells, which means that if this one goes up, also good, that a few fragments are going to whistle over here and take out this one as well. And it will certainly take out the IR cameras right here, which are also blocked. as well. You can... so if you do this, yeah, so a similar thing is possibly drop the smokestacks by 1 block, so that these detection systems can see. Admittedly, they are, well, they're blocking each other, but the fix for that is simply move one of them 1 space forward. Then you should be, actually, I'll show you, so. So it says this one here can now see out, and this one here is blocked by that, and that, and that, and now this one can see. So you've got 2 separate detection systems that can see in every direction, mostly because they just track an X. So forward, backward, left, right. So that's a neat little trick that I think I used that on the Crocodile, actually, one of my submarines. But yeah, so aesthetics is all very well, but don't let it actually block your craft's ability to see. And yeah, I've already talked about the heavy armor spam, but it's not just on the turrets, it's deeper. So here we have, there's heavy armor here, there, and everywhere. It's around here. It's around these secondary guns that are, well, underwater for the most part, so more on that later. So there's heavy armor here, there's heavy armor there. So EMP has a habit of melting this craft quite quickly. So, and also this thing is way more expensive than it should be, thanks to just the sheer amount of heavy armor it has. Let's actually get her out of the water a little bit. And yeah, what else? This whole thing also, as well as that steam engine, which tends to eat materials like mad, like see, I'm giving it resources now, and now I'm not. And it's ticking back almost faster than the game gives it whenever I hit F5, so that is a bit of an issue, because the thing is not even in combat anymore, and it's just eating materials like no one's business. Which is, I've learned the hard way that you want to use as little materials as possible, just in general, because you don't actually get that much. And speaking of things that I've learned the hard way, this craft is uses one of the least effective meta strategies, which is repair bot spam. This is not a good idea, and those of you who follow my Nita campaign series will, well, I have learned this the hard way. Just even if you're constantly repairing wood, it tends to drain your money very quickly. And this, when you look at what this craft is mainly made of, like the things that usually get blown up first are these secondaries, a lot of metal hull, especially this 1 layer thick metal hull, and all this really is just, well, fodder. It gets a hole blown, and like a lot of materials gets wasted repairing it. And these guns here, these big exposed guns, even if the heavy armor doesn't get destroyed, explosions tend to tunnel in through where the firing pieces are and just essentially gut this thing completely. And cram cannon components are very, very expensive. That's one of the main weaknesses of one of my own craft, the Skilla, is that the guns are exposed and she still relies on repairs to stay alive, which means they're continually repairing the same cram cannon components over and over again, and that is very expensive and very wasteful, so you don't want that. You want to protect your guns better, particularly these ones. You can sink down, there is a lot of space directly beneath them, so you can make a more traditional turret very easily. You can sink it down here. So yeah, that's something to consider. And one thing you might have noticed as I'm zipping through back and forth through this craft is that there's a lot of space in it. In fact, what the? Huh, I wonder why the water's in here. That's just weird. So, there's a lot of empty space in here, and that, I believe, is used mainly for buoyancy because, well, surprise, surprise, you use heavy armor, your craft is heavy. The weakness of that is that these are... there's not many compartments. They're very big, and they're not well armored. So, if you go over here, that's 1 layer of metal, 2 layers of metal. 1, 2, nothing. So, 2 layers of metal is acceptable in some locations. It is not acceptable for a craft this big, this expensive, because even frag shells will, if of sufficient size and of sufficient quantity, will tear straight through this. And then you've got a hull breach and the thing's buoyancy is compromised. In fact, when I was testing this craft earlier, the way it usually dies is it gets a hull breach, it has one, and then it slows down, and then gets another, and it just sinks. And it will sink at very high health. I've seen this thing sink at about 95% health, or something like that. Simply because, like, shots tend to punch straight through multiple compartments. And then the thing, well, it just sinks like a rock, because it weighs as much as one. A very big rock made out of exotic composite materials. And what else? Dun, 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 dun. I've already talked about the surface turrets there. Not only are they made out of too much heavy armor, they're also too big. Because all a big surface-based turret is doing, really, is giving your opponent a very big target to shoot at. Like, even if it's aiming for somewhere else, if it's aiming for ammunition, shells tend to, well, they tend to stray a bit and tend to hit all over the place, and these turrets, especially since there's only two of them, and they're quite wide, they're quite tall, and they're quite long, these get hit a lot. And the heavy armor only does so much to save them, because when the barrels get, like, trimmed off to about here by explosions or frag, the whole gun's essentially useless. It can't hit anything. So it's one of those things that heavy armor is easy to be rendered useless, because it can only defend something it encloses entirely. And I mean entirely. This doesn't count because there's a nice convenient little tunneling hole right here, right into the things in it. And also same here, I believe. Actually, no, this is fully enclosed. So yeah, big surface turrets, not a good idea. And I'm one to talk because I tend to use smaller surface turrets all the time. I'm quite fond of them. There's this one I use, and this is about as big as I've found acceptable. This is the Slapper, and usually it's just a little bit shorter. And whoops. So this is the one I use a lot, and this is already excessively big. This gets blown up all the time. It's the thing you see, like, well, on this craft. Ah, crap. On this craft right here, this tiny little ship right here. So yeah, this is, I'm not saying that the way I've done it is necessarily a good idea. I tend to use guns like this, if only to save on the height of ships. Like, you'll notice that the Goanna here is not very tall at all. Her hull is quite, what do you call it? Quite flat. So yeah, not sure why I pulled her up there. Like, because it makes me look like a hypocrite in saying that surface turrets are not a good idea. Trust me, they are not. There's a reason why most faction ships don't use them, and the ones that do tend to absolutely drown them in shields. And by the way, the shield placement on this craft isn't optimal either, because there's massive gaps in it. And also, it's very simple just to put an ACB on your shields. Where is it? Here we go. So there's two ACBs here. Whoop. Wow, interesting. That was unfortunate. It turns out that this thing actually relies on power consumption to keep its steam engines from damaging themselves. So, bit of an oversight right there, Benzo. Oh god, it's doing it again. Will you stop it? Thank you. Peace and quiet at last. Dun 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 dun. Should mention as well that when I spawn this thing in... Wait a minute. What? When I spawned this thing in previously, if its batteries start at 0, it has reasonably poor electricity production, simply because the steam engine needs to get up to speed. That's a problem with the game, unfortunately. Like, given sufficient time to charge, it gets enough electricity, but then it eats material like crazy. And I'm just going to leave that there so you can see how fast it drains. And, what's it? Essentially, this, just the power production on this craft is a little bit lacking, simply because it needs these PIDs and, well, combined with these, vulnerable, like, compartments, it needs these PIDs to, these PID propellers to stay afloat, to stay above the water. And this, you can see how fast they're going. They're going full tilt just to keep this thing out of the depths. That is, bit of an issue. If you have a craft that needs things like this to stay afloat, you need a much more efficient engine. Something that consumes very little fuel and very little material. In fact, preferably none, really. And I believe there is a very powerful, efficient engine available somewhere, no idea where to find it, called the Behemoth, that apparently a lot of my subscribers use, and by a lot of I mean at least 3. It's a 3's a number, okay? So, yeah, so, back to the guns again. I did say there's a lot of criticism here, so, like, jeez, I've been talking about 40 minutes. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's look at the Tetris. What the hell? Cram components, are they structural? I did not realize that. That's weird. What the hell is going on? Okay, just P then. So this thing also has reasonably poor cram Tetris, and you can see that because neither of these two cannons are sharing any pellets, and you kind of need that for multi-targeted crams. And you see here that these explosive, well, it's not terrible, actually, never mind, it is. So these explosive pellets right here, let's see, how are these arranged? They only have about 2 connections on them, and these ones in the middle only have about 3. 3 is the bare minimum. You preferably want 4 or even more. 4 is the standard. And so yeah, these things do not pack as efficiently as they should be, and they're also more expensive than they should be. So, Cram Tetris, again, a Wellner's Cram Tetris Mark II platform, worth taking a look at. And what else? Armor! This thing is not armored cleverly. I'm sorry to say. You would have seen already that the hull is quite thin. It's only 2 layers of metal, which for a craft this big and slow is just not good enough. And like, the bulwark also has armor this thin, but it also sits much lower in the water, and it also has better shield coverage and also aim point spoofing, a lot more of. So, there's that to consider. So, these front and rear compartments tend to get destroyed easily simply because they're not armored enough. And even around here, you'll see that this heavy armor is, again, it's not wrapping around the thing it's meant to protect. So these secondary guns, firstly, not tremendously good idea because, let's see, little frag guns right here. Again, you don't want expensive components making up your side guns. I think there's a proper term for that. I can't remember what it is. You don't want that because the cost of these adds up very quickly. In fact, let us see how... Turret of Ximarka Cross Battleship. That's almost 2,000 in itself. And... stop it. There we go. And 2,000, well, closer to 1,700 times 10. 1,700 is 170,000 materials just gone right there in these little frag guns that honestly don't do a hell of a lot. I did not notice in any of my testing them making much of an impact at all. It's actually more than that. It's got more of them up here, actually. Yep, it's got more of them up there. Make that 100 and... I can't math. It's even more materials, let's just say that. So yeah, like, similar, so that's another similar problem it has to the Novaesia is just, damn it, there is a name for it. It's, I guess, carronades? No. Something like that. Just guns in the hull guns, I suppose. Side-mounted hull guns. Generally not efficient. You can make them work, but it tends to be lots of like small cheap guns rather than just a few expensive ones. So direct input feeders if you absolutely must, and if you're gonna I wouldn't even bother with heavy armor around here. These guns are too exposed as it is. Nice big 4-meter long and 2-meter tall hole for shells to come whistling through and destroy this, so I wouldn't even bother with the heavy armor there. Like, save your money for something else. Dun 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 dun. And yeah, so it's armored, funny. And also, a note on these air gaps, yes, they are used for buoyancy, but it is wasted space. You can stick a lot more in here. Like, admittedly, this craft has all its stuff deep here in the Citadel, but yeah, if you just fling through the ship, there's a lot of just space wasted, which not only is inefficient in terms of materials, it makes this thing very vulnerable to Hesh. Because what'll happen is, a Hesh shell will come here, the Thump will take out these beams easily, and then the frags will just shred here and damage everything on the inside, so possibly rupturing more than one compartment at once. You don't want that. It does mean this thing is pretty hard to kill with heat, though, unless it gets hit around... Well, I guess the turrets are probably vulnerable to heat, because, like, a strong heat shell will go straight through this and just completely gut the insides of it. But yeah, you need to armor smart, not armor more, is what I found. And... yeah, I've already talked about the broadside gun. That's basically it for the criticism. Sorry there was so much of it, but the Ximarka does need a lot of work. It is a good start in understanding how to get, well, a big heavy thing to float, like PIDs. I still haven't gotten the hang of PIDs, by the way, so points there. And, like, just compartmentalization, but just generally more efficiency is needed, and just smarter protection, because you can actually keep certain parts of a ship alive pretty well, provided you put it in the right place, and if you put the right kind of armor on it. Just, when in doubt, use metal instead of heavy armor, because it is actually cheaper, it doesn't get damaged by EMP, and it's easier to repair. And if you're going to make an expensive ship, like, splurge on power and engines and shields rather than outright armor, because armor will die eventually. A good shield, unless it's disabled by some other means, can hold off APS barrages forever. So, that's something to consider. Novaesia is a little better, but still also has its share of issues. But both of these craft are a solid good start. Like, I would like to see, like, the next kind of ship that both of these ship makers make, because I have no doubt their next pieces of work will be a lot better. So, and as ever, we're going to finish off this video with having them two fight each other. And spoiler alert, wrong menu thing. The spoiler alert here is that the Novaesia tends to win. It's simply just because it's got more weapons, really. So let's go here and the date to that long subscriber list. Don't worry, this is not the full list of ships I have to review. This is just the folder I put every craft I receive from a subscriber. So it's okay. It is a-okay. Do not panic. The actual list is a lot shorter than this. So where is the... This is Novaesia. I'm gonna put her on Steel Strider's colors because she looks good like that. Well, looks okay. And the Ximarka is gonna go way over here, way over here, way over here. They're about here. Ximarka over here on its watch. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. Both, yeah, I should mention both these ships have their kind of charm in their own way. Mostly because, for me, this reminds me an awful lot of the ships I used to try and build. And often, I didn't even get as far as this. I just kind of, well, I think that my building style, especially with larger ships, is essentially making oversized war canoes, rather than, like, realistic-looking battleships. So yeah, important to find your own style and just kind of modify it to be effective. And see what I mean about the APN torpedoes? Those things are not going to hit, and especially since they don't have buoyancy tanks, they keep losing the target. And the counter torpedoes are coming right in. I forgot to mention, the counter torpedoes actually do need APN guidance, because that way they'll track an incoming torpedo a lot better. So yeah, take off one fin, put an APN guidance on it, it should work quite well. And let's see over here if my story is straight. So shields are taking a bit, and you can see right here, immediately, like, well, the hull's breached, this is taken down. Where else has it taken damage? Yeah, there's one gun gone, there's another gun gone. It's just, there's big gaps in the defense, and already this barrel is sheared off. And the massive hunk of heavy armor behind it is not very helpful anymore. It's just weighing down the ship. And right there, you see a problem with, oh, dang it, I completely forgot to mention about the Novaesia, because I didn't bloody well write it down in my notes, is that its turrets aren't armored, and it also, well, this one is. Some of them are, this one is not. And also, by proxy, the one that just got blown up is not. And worth armoring your turrets internally. And what else? Trying to think of things on the spot. Worth armoring your turrets. Might even be worth putting eject. Wow, this thing got decapitated. That actually looks really cool. So yeah, and what else? Both of these ships are really tearing through the materials, I have to say. Like, almost too fast. The Novaesia also likes its repair bots a little bit. And let's have a look over here. So, yeah, barrels trimmed over here, already not good. And this is, yeah, 2 compartments breached already. And I think, where else? I think that's just there. And these guns right here, not doing an awful lot because their angle is too low, torpedoes taken down. The Ximarka is not looking good. That deck armor is just a little bit too thin. Even a double layer of wood and metal would do better than what's happening right now. Because even these little tiny crams are going to make, well, not that much of a dent. That goes to show that those little 1000mm crams aren't doing much. And once again, torpedoes flung off into the middle distance. Never gonna hit, they need buoyancy tanks and no APNs. I should mention, yeah, the Novaesia has a smoke gun, so props there, I suppose. And just anything with any kind of penetration just rips clean through this. And the Ximarka is almost out of materials. Hello? And the Novaesia is actually hanging on to materials a little bit better, actually. Possibly because she keeps getting materials from blowing up the Ximarka. Right here... See, there the shields did a reasonably good job, but you see they keep flickering on and off. The power draw is not efficient in the Ximarka, so lots this video is long. And there we go again. And you can see right here, explosion is going to tunnel in, and against sufficiently powerful stuff, one layer of heavy armor isn't going to cut it. Oh yep, here she goes. She is starting to sink. How is the Novaesia doing? She's at 98%. I believe, if I had to guess... No, I'm wrong actually. Where is she damaged? She's missing bits here, there, and everywhere. She's got actually very thick armor in some places. Again, so less gaps in the defense, but yeah, need to armor up the guns a little bit more. Just the poor Ximarka, just ugh. I feel for you, Benzo. I really do. Like watching your craft get torn to pieces like this. So you can see it's just there's a lot of heavy armor down here, but on top there's not an awful lot at all. So. And yeah, she's capsizing right now because buoyancy's been rendered, well, not as good. And see, she's at 88% and now she is sinking. That is not good. In fact, at this point, I think that, yeah. And you see these guns on the side here? They can do nothing. That is, I guess, 14,000, no, more than that, 17,000 More? Oh god damn it, I can't remember. Just a lot of materials that is not helping right now because she's crippled. She is done. And I really hope she gets to 80% in sinking eventually because otherwise we're going to be here a very long time. See, the little side guns on the Novaesia, they aren't bad, but they're just not very efficient. It's more efficient to stick them on turrets, so they can aim on either side of the ship. Although I have to say that Burning Fire is doing a lovely job of damaging this. I just realized how hungry I am. Yep, 80% in sinking. There she goes. There she goes. There she goes again. So, sorry about that, Benzo, but I feel a live demonstration was in order. And, no, Heismaster, don't get too cocky because, your ship does not do well against, well, a lot of things that are its cost. I feel bad now. I've been very negative this whole review, though. Do like those crams. Those are good crams. I appreciate when people use crams. Makes me happy. Even though, see, ironically, the craft I build are, like, kind of weak to cram cannons for some reason. I guess it's because I subconsciously don't like using, like, cram counters, like lambs, or very strong layered shields, or even, like, very fast things. I don't know. So, gods, this was a very long video. Thank you! Thank you, Benzo, and thank you, Heismaster, for sending in your ships. I hope what I said was helpful. I hope it was enlightening. I hope you don't take it too hard, me, like, figuratively and literally tearing your ships to bits. And, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you next time in From the Depths, and another subscriber craft review. The face actually does look very pretty from this angle. Farewell!